But in the meantime, it's time for Culture Wars. And who better to talk Culture Wars than that man of culture himself? Outsiders host, the resplendent, ravishing Rowan Dean. Rowan, nice to speak on a day that isn't Sunday. Now, Rowan, as if things aren't exciting enough, not only is June Pride Month, but did you know that next month, July, is now Plastic-Free July? I mean, Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek sure did, and she has pledged to refuse to use single-use cups. I mean, this is so stunning and brave, and I wonder what sort of social media we're going to be subject to over the course of July. But, Rowan, are you giving up your single-use cups?
I certainly shan't be, James, and you're right to draw the hilarious kind of... we've just had a month of celebrating LGB, what's it, Q, SL2R, whatever it is, which of course is lots of colourful bunting and rainbow flags and glitter and drag queens with plastic hair and plastic whatever else. So we have a month of the gay plastic celebrations going around the world. And then, of course, we have to have that. This is a religion, obviously, this woke religion. You have to follow a month of using lots of plastic and lots of glittery rubbish to celebrate whatever, to have a month of abstinence and a month where you purge your soul, James, and go without that coffee cup in the morning because it might end up in a wastefill, a landfill somewhere or other. And I mean, the joke about all this is you see Tanya Plibersek proudly standing there. This is someone we pay a lot of money for to help run the country. She's standing there virtue signaling that she doesn't intend to have any one-use, single-use plastic cups again. She forgets the fact that under her policies and Chris Bowen's policies, we won't have to worry about landfill for plastic cups because all the landfill will be taken up with solar panels, with windmill blades, with wind turbines, with batteries that don't function, which do far more pollution and damage to Mother Earth than you could possibly do with a single coffee cup. But that's the left for you, James. Focus on the coffee cup. Ignore the absolute ghastly environmental damage being done in your name to the planet by renewables. What a great world we live in, James.
Yeah, but Rowan, I think you're missing a real point here, though, is that if you stop filling up our landfill with all these disposable coffee cups every time you get your flat white or almond latte or double macchiato, that's my favorite, you got to make room in the landfill for all the solar panels when they've expended their useful life and all the wind turbine blades when, they eventually have to be taken down. So I think there's a bit of long-term thinking here from the Greens that maybe, we're not giving them credit
exactly.
for here. But, Rowan, I want to shift over to new news here, developments in The Voice we've talked about in the last couple of days. We're going to have the referendum, and Anthony Albanese is already changing his rhetoric to say it's about recognition and relying on the vibes. But we've also seen some other real practical stuff. A couple of weeks ago, Fraser Island was renamed to its traditional name of Kagari, and it got me thinking, I mean, do you reckon that other places are going to be renamed if the Voice Advisory Panel perhaps recommends it? We already see people calling Melbourne Narm, but will we calling Sydney Gadigal?
Well, probably, yes. And I was recently in a Qantas lounge where there was a giant map of Australia with, instead of the 6 states and territories, 2 territories, it's now a kind of jigsaw puzzle of Indigenous names of various areas, and the whole of Australia is now being painted in these terms. So it only follows the logic of Kagari Island. So Fraser Island is out, it's now Kagari. We've got Uluru, obviously. We've got so many. If you just look across the ditch to New Zealand and you see how this playbook works, James, they will basically rename everything. And the logic is if you're going to rename one because the Indigenous name is more whatever than the Anglo-Saxon name, then you may as well do the lot. And this is clearly what they're intending to do. This is what Qantas are already doing. So we can look forward to not knowing where we're going. You book a Qantas flight, you won't know where you're going to end up. You think you're going to so-and-so, and you'll end up in the other place.
Well, I mean, and this is the thing, Rowan, and I want to just keep on this for a minute because, it's all fun and games to talk about the culture wars, but there's also a serious side to this. As far as I'm concerned, Australia is one of the most, if not the most successful multicultural migrant states in the entire world, on the planet. Now, it's, each time you take a Fraser Island and turn it to Gari, or, Melbourne to Narm, every time you do that, in a sense, yes, you're honoring what came before, but you're also dishonoring, in a sense, post-settlement Australia. How much of this is about an agenda of delegitimizing, Rowan, the modern, functional Westminster parliamentary democracy and the liberties that we all enjoy?
Well, it is entirely, James, and you and I have discussed it before frequently, that the agenda here is a much more sinister one than it appears on the surface. And that is basically spreading confusion at the same time as removing any vestiges of British history on this continent, forgetting the fact that the British brought with them so many benefits to the Indigenous Australians, benefits without which many would certainly not be alive, but certainly benefits which any Indigenous Australian can and should be enjoying the full fruits of. That was brought not by anybody else, but by the British, by the settlers, by the colonials, and then waves of immigrants following upon that. There's no denying that. So this game here that they're playing is to try and delegitimize all of that, sow seeds of doubt onto all of that, paint all of the past as some kind of backwater that the settlers and the pioneers were somehow, involved in scurrilous activities, when the truth is the complete and absolute opposite of that. And so this name game is simply to carry on delegitimizing every aspect. They've torn down the statues, they'll attack the institutions, they'll even change the names. It's a Marxist agenda, and it's simply designed to undermine and delegitimize all aspects of Western civilization here in Australia. And people have to wake up to it. And The Voice, I hate to tell you, is lock, stock and barrel part of this agenda. That's precisely why it is being pushed so aggressively.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Now, just on a little bit of a fun note, we keep talking about Bud Light, and the reason we keep talking about Bud Light is that the boycott against it keeps working, which is quite extraordinary. I don't think we've ever seen a Go Woke, Go Broke campaign hit home just so much like this. Now, of course, executives at the company say they want to move forward, and they say that they are going to embark on a listening tour across America to try to win back customers following the debacle from Dylan Mulvaney. And they're saying to customers, "We hear you." Now, I don't know about you, Rowan. Bud Light was never a particularly good beer, but this pandering seems far too much. What do you reckon, Rowan?
Well, we used to talk about seeing the world through beer goggles. I guess they'll be hearing the world through these beer earmuffs or whatever. But I'd be getting used to hearing some, abbreviated language. Americans, particularly non-woke Americans, are venting their anger over this. And it goes to the point that it used to be that corporations, companies, the customer was always right. That was the ethos I was brought up in advertising. Customer was always right. If you want to have a successful brand, listen to your customers and give them what they want. For whatever reason, the last 5 years has seen this mad rush into wokeness with corporations or CEOs, probably not actually the people within the companies, but CEOs and marketing managers and so on, thinking that going down the woke path will get them their next job, probably, is all it's about. So customers have to vent their dissatisfaction. The easiest way to vent your dissatisfaction is simply not to buy the product, and Americans have been doing that in droves. They've driven down the share price. Sure, it's had a little lift back up in the last few days, but it is really important that Australians, along with Americans and everyone else who is concerned about the way our civilization is heading, to use the tools at their disposal. And the best tool in a democratic country should be capitalism. It should be your purse pocket, your money, your cash, where you spend it. That's the best way to show your pleasure or displeasure with these sorts of organizations who think that they can just ride roughshod over the sensibilities of everyday hardworking people. And that's what's happened in America. It needs to happen here. And there are certain companies that would be right at the top of my list to not be spending my money with.